What's up, Jimbo? Chris,
Hello.
we're checking your Tinder. We're on a podcast. This is very serious stuff.
It's Grinder he's checking.
Make any matches?
No, drew a blank again.
Wow. It's going to be another lonely night for you, huh?
Yeah.
I guess you're going to be watching some darts, and it's about all you get for your life tonight, huh?
Yeah, pretty much, mate.
Yeah, your couch never says no. Don't worry.
The darts even got the darts even made the ESPN.com website this morning as a news item. So yeah, it's a cool story.
Yep. 16-year-old in the World Championship.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people checking his. Although I mean, why lie about it? It's not like he couldn't get into the tournament unless he was under 18.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and that's on DAZN. So I'm actually a dart player now. All I do is play darts. And somebody said I need to watch it today, so it's at 1:30 my time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, it'll be a crazy atmosphere, I'm sure. Yeah. Because it's really gotten a lot of ink and a lot of play, and listen, to try to weave it back into the pool scene. I mean, this is a Matchroom PDC event, right? And so you see where darts has gone, where darts has gotten, and it's hard to make the same type of analogies in pool because darts in the UK is just different. But it's kind of like snooker. But it shows what you can do when you stick with something and keep building it up, and eventually you get the buy-in. I'm sure they had some lean years with the darts at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
And now it's panning out. I mean, they're not all millionaires, zillionaires, still not snooker money, but it's listen.
If you look at the money list this year in the PDC, I think there's like 8 players or 7 players that are over the million so far, and that's just prize money, and the sponsorship contracts that they have are massive as well. So yeah, there are millionaires there.
That's great.
And I mean, the winner tonight's going to go home with $500,000. The loser, I think, goes home with 200,000, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so, but they said earlier on TalkSport it was only 100, but I'm sure they're wrong.
No, they had 100,000 in the semi-final.
Right.
It was already 100,000. Yeah. So it's not bad for a 16-year-old. It's a bit of a. It's good to see some new guys coming through, and it's a bit of a. The only thing I can really liken it to in pool is Wu. Yeah. When he came through as a teenager and won the World Championships.
Sure. This is given a huge shot in the arm to pro darts, from a visibility standpoint for sure. I mean, this storyline is, it's making, sports sections in the US where, they don't know a dart from a straw. So it's
but this is what Matchroom do very, very well. They get stuff out there. They're very good at the whole. I use the word promoting. Obviously, they're very good at promoting, but they're on it straight away. In Barry Hearn, we've heard it before. If something happens and there's not a media frenzy within 10 minutes, and he's phoning people up and asking why.
Yeah.
He wants everything out there. He wants stuff to go viral. He wants all the platforms to be used in order to push the product. And a little bit of the same is going on at the moment.
Yeah. Are we going right into the contracts, Jim? Are we going right into the contracts? Because I'm curious.
You're allowed to see now. You're allowed to be curious. Being curious is okay. Don't start demanding stuff on Facebook that you have the right to know what's in these contracts. You have the right to be sent a photocopy of somebody's contract. All that kind of rubbish that's going on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, to your point. It's my understanding as well, and you can probably confirm this, Jim, but that part of the contract does talk about players required to disseminate posts and threads and promotions for events and stories they do on social media, which that makes all the sense in the world to me. I mean, it's not a big ask. Tell someone,
but it's the same with anything. It's not a big deal just to go on there and press share. Right. You go on there and make your social media. All these top guys have got 5,000 followers on there. At least, I think you can even have more if you're just followed. But 5,000 friends,
Right.
They then repost it, and it spreads so quickly, you know. So yeah, the players, it'll be part of their responsibility is to promote the game as well as
I mean it's in their best interest.
Absolutely, and it's one thing that they perhaps have failed in the past is actually promoting themselves to a high enough level. But now
if you look at where the players are in social media engagement today as opposed to 3 years ago, it's night and day.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, that's
and it's but you've also seen it not just with players. You've seen that a lot of the two main probably now Q manufacturers, but Predator and Q-Tech, they're a lot more involved on social media as well now than they used to be. So they're all learning from it, and they're all realizing that that's the way to go, you know.
And I think you'll see more and more of the companies get into this as you know, we've seen the movement in players from Q sponsors and company sponsors and things like that. There's a lot more companies that all of a sudden are jumping back in that have been really quiet for years, especially here in the States. And so they're going to have to play that game as well. So it's just more tentacles out into cyberspace that can help build, the storyline.
Yep. And these Q brands and these main sponsors that we have within Pool, they're going to have to start doing more because, these guys are going to get promoted a lot more. They're going to be sports stars. They're going to have a lot more TV exposure, a lot more media exposure. So those 6 or whatever little pieces of real estate that they have on the shirts are going to start costing people a lot more than what they used to cost.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's going to be. Yeah.
Chris, what do you hear?
Not a lot.
You don't have any inside gossip? Oh, come on, Chris.
Did you get an invite?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's nothing in the contracts that you wouldn't expect to be there. There's nothing controversial. There's nothing. I saw Jim causing mayhem on Facebook last night, and it was all over. So many people commenting and getting upset over something that A, doesn't really have something to do with them, but they can be curious. But B, there's nothing to know. There's literally nothing to know.
No, there isn't. There is.
Well, you know what, Matchroom? Let's face it.
People when people don't find out, they start to. I'm glad Chris is here, and they start sort of almost making stuff up because there has to be something sinister behind it. There has to be a dark side. It can't just be a simple. We want you with us. Do you want also to be with us?
Well, I mean, this
is what we're going to do for you, and this is what we expect you to do for us. There has to be something sinister in there. There has to be something weird. It's
like a middle school love contract. You like
I'll
me?
tell you what,
I like you.
If you see one of these contracts, you'll go, oh, all right then.
There's nothing that you would care about if you weren't actually involved. But over the last couple of weeks, I've seen some belters on.
Yeah, no, it's been some.
I blame Nate for getting me on Facebook in the first place because you see some utter shit on there. But the first one I saw was
anything for you, buddy boy.
Thank you. The players that signed, we were all going to get a sign-in bonus, and I think the number that was put around was 10K, which I thought, I fucking hope that's true because I could do it.
Yeah, sure.
There's no chance. I mean, I can tell you, it's going to be. It's building up to be something quite similar to the snooker tour. 128 professionals.
Wait a second.
But wait a minute.
We're not going to get a $750 million signing bonus like John Rahm got.
Not yet. There's maybe.
Where's the Saudi money?
There's perhaps an unborn child somewhere who may get that kind of money when he becomes a professional at the age of 20 years old or whatever.
Yeah,
I just don't get it. I feel like we need some Saudi money in our lives.
On the snooker tour, there's 128 players that are professionals, and they all get 20,000. I think the number's 20,000 they get at the start of the season. So that's 2.5
128 get 20,000.
Yes.
128 get 20,000, but it's essentially most of that. It sounds like a lot, but really it's coming from the tour prize fund, because as you win prize money, that 20 grand is deducted.
You get deduct. Okay,
there's just there's little bits taken off everywhere to make sure
they're basically giving it to you up front so you can make your expenses and go to events and whatever, and then you pay them back because what's the interest rate?
They're taking it. Let's say the same player wins every single tournament. They're taking a little bit off him and spreading it around the entire tour.
Yeah.
So you could win nothing all season, but still be in the top 128, and you're still going to get 20 grand to start your next season. So that's 2.5 million. Matchroom are not going to throw 2.5 million at the players at this moment in the pool world. That's not going to happen. So the idea that the players are going to are being paid already in order to have this contract, it's too early. That might be something in the future.
Yeah. Well, you got to wait till someone comes in with some money first.
Yeah, but you'll have the 128. They'll start a Q2 at some stage. I'm not entirely sure how the rankings is going to work. I'm not sure if there's something in there that Chris would disclose. But the way I see it working is if you're in the 128, you're in the 128 for the entire season. Right. And then there's a 1-year ranking, and then it's upgraded at the end of the season, and then there's a new 128. Yeah. So it means that players then at the start of the season can have a look at the schedule and plan their entire season without the worry of all of a sudden going from 125 to 129, and then the next tournament they're not getting in.
Yeah, right.
So they're guaranteed. But you're also guaranteed, if you're in the top 16, you're guaranteed every event.
I guarantee Jason Shaw got a signing bonus.
Yeah, he'll have got something.
Guaranteed Jason Shaw got a signing bonus.
Yeah, he got that. He got that $750 million.
But he's pretty cheap. It was probably just, I don't know, a packet of crisps and a mark. or a Rolex. Yeah, he probably got a Rolex.
So we talk about the what's this undebatable's?
Undateables.
Jeez. Nate, can you please take Jason and Carl off your list of people who get pinged when we go on?
I probably
might be my fault.
Wait, Jason and who?
Boys.
Maybe we should get basically ask Jason if he wants to come on and just tell us exactly.
He's sitting in his ice bath after he just got out of his sauna. I don't want to see this, to tell you the truth.
Maybe he's like on Audible. There's like a Carl and Jason like did the narrative for it, and they just read it out in like a really like Morgan Freeman type of voice.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of fun.
One thing, Chris, you can answer or not answer. Is there anything in the contract that says the players are not allowed to discuss the contract?
I don't think it says anything in there about that. But if you are signing a contract, you shouldn't really be talking about it.
There you go. Exactly. So it's basically integrity. You've been given a contract. It's the integrity. I don't discuss my work contract with other people, although I probably am allowed to, but I just don't do it because it's just not. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't think there's anything. It'll just be basically this is what the plan is for the next year. This is where you sit in the rankings. This is what you can expect. Blah blah blah.
I have had a lot of people reach out to me and they'd be like, "So what is Jacoby doing for your podcast?" I'd be like,
"Yeah,
get a podcast that's halfway successful. You can find out because you can go through those negotiations. Like, don't ask me what I'm like. I'm not going to tell you what I get from a company because one, it's not fair to the company who's in this negotiation with me, and two, it's none of your damn business.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, there's people on Facebook saying yes, but the players the players who might get a contract, they would want to know what's in it. Well, at the end of the day, if let's say you're 150,
run a rack or two.
But no, let's say you're 150, so you might not get. I would say there's out of the top 128, there's going to be some who don't accept. So it'll probably go to 135, 140, maybe even above to get the 128. But let's say you're at 170 and you're thinking next year I want to make a push and I want to get myself into the top 128. If you're number 170 on there, you've not just gone to one or two tournaments. You know all these players. You've probably got half of them on your WhatsApp. It's very easy just to call up and say, listen, give me a quick rundown on that contract. Is it something I'd be interested in or not? Or do I make other arrangements? So the guys who are in the running for it, they already know. You think these players don't already know exactly what's in the contract? If you're in that circuit, it's very easy to find out what's in it.
Well, if you've ever played in a Matchroom major and you signed one of the player contracts for just one of those single events, just go back and read it because that's pretty much
not a lot different. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's no conspiracy in it. There's no
conspiracy.
If you sign with us, you can't play this. You can't play this. People saying it's going to be like a WPA thing where Matchroom are going to demand that you don't play another thing. They don't have one thing. I don't think they would ever put that in because it might scare some players away.
But they don't have to.
They don't need to because the WPA are going to do their dirty work for them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the Matchroom contract can say, listen, if you want to play into Qatar Open, you can play into Qatar Open.
Exactly.
Because WPA is going to be the one to tell them, no, you can't.
Exactly. Can't.
Let them be.
Well, that's a shame. They come and play at our event then. I mean, they don't need to restrict them because the WPA, if they go through with it on the 1st of March, everybody who's all these 128 players, and I think there'll be 128. It'll be announced over the whole month of January, 4 a day or whatever. They'll get to the 128. All those 128, as soon as they play their first Matchroom tournament after the 1st of March, all they've got left is Matchroom and non-sanctioned WPA events, which they will be free to play, I guess, as long as it's not conflicting with a Matchroom event that they've already promised to play. I mean, and why would it? So, I mean, I guess the amount of tournaments, the amount of majors, the money up for grabs, that'll all be in it as well. And
yeah.
Well, so why don't we jump? Well, is there anything else you want to talk about, Mike?
Well, I was just curious about. I'm going to use that word a lot. The players who are not in the 128. Did I hear something about that you can only play an X number of Matchroom Open events, or something like that? I couldn't figure out what that part was about.
Yeah, but I think that was sort of leaked out. It seemed to have been a leak. I think Tero Hilpinen is talking about this as the leak, the contract. That wasn't really a contract. That was more of how it's going to pan out over this year. And yes, like if you're not one of the 128, then you get the chance to play in 2 events.
You have a really hard time then breaking the 128 for the next year.
Yeah, but that's not 2 events, right? But that's not how it's going to work.
Okay,
that's not how it's going to work because it'll be 2 majors. So there's lots of other Matchroom events. If you want to play in Derby City Classic,
a lot of other WNT
that doesn't count
events
because it's not a Matchroom major. It's not one of. So I think you're talking about one of the Matchroom majors.
It's still going to be pretty tough to break
that's
through.
Still where, that's still where most of your points are going to come from.
It's not, again, it may have an influence on the ranking for next year, but not as much as what the plan I think will be, which will be a Q school. Right. As of 2025. And then it's not going to be about you getting ranking points to break into it's going to be about you qualifying.
Right.
To be in
ideally, that's what
playing against other players from outside the 128.
Yeah.
Sure. And then it changes. But the open events will still get you ranking points, but you'll only be able to play. I mean, how many open events will there be?
5.
I mean, there's 5 open events, and you can play in 2 of them.
Or 5 majors, 4 opens, 4 opens, and 1 in the world.
Well, that's going to be the US Open, the UK Open.
The Worlds is only the top 100. So then there's 4 majors that you can sign up to do somebody that's outside. No, because the Worlds you can't sign up to. It's the top
6th. Yeah, the Worlds is the 6th. Sorry, the Worlds is the 6th.
So you can play in 2, but I'm quite sure if they need players. They may run out of players to fill up 256
the US Open, the Vietnam Open, or whatever they're going to call it going forward, the Hanoi Open. Yeah. And then from my understanding, there's going to be 2 more open events added to the calendar this year. From my understanding,
I believe there's going to be 12 majors.
Yeah. 12 majors.
Well, that's counting the World Cup of Pool, the Masters, the Mosconi Cup.
Yeah, they're invitationals. You can't call them majors.
Yeah, they're not majors.
Yeah, they're invitationals, but I'll be surprised if 12's a lot.
But the Masters may be part of the majors, but
maybe, yeah.
12 256 player fields.
12 256 player fields. That's what I don't. That's what I don't.
12 256
That's not open.
players.
That's not what I mean by majors. Majors are not opens. Opens is opens.
Yeah, I think I'm with Matt. I think the World Cup of Pool is
6 majors, 6 invitationals.
Okay.
Yeah. The World Cup of Pool, the World Masters, the Premier League Pool, I think those are all counting towards that. I'm with Matt there.
So I guess the guys who are signing the contracts, they already know whether they're in the Premier League pool because the ranking will dictate that. They'll already know whether they're in the Masters because the ranking will dictate that. Somebody like Jason, he's high enough ranked that he'll be in everything now. Regardless of how he performs for the first 6 months of the year, he can't. I would imagine he can't lose his ranking. It stays for the entire year.
So, not a conspiracy. Just curious. So, if this year, if a player can only play in 2 of these open majors, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if there's a Mohammed Sufi this year in the first event of the year? He can only play in 1 more.
It's Matchroom's ball. They can do whatever they want.
Well, yeah, I mean that asterisk that says subject to change is going to get a heavy workout this year, I think.
Yeah, but it could well be. It could well be.
Yeah, I was just curious because I was thinking, about a guy like Sufi who comes out of no place and all of a sudden makes the final of the World Championship. Mm-hmm. Is he still going to be under restriction because he wouldn't have been in the top 128? Would he still be under restriction and of only being able to play 1 more event? So.
He'd definitely be on the tour next year in that case, though. So there's
right.
plenty of heavy hitters that can still play in only 2 big events and still finish way high up on the list.
Yeah.
But yes, if somebody from let's say number 129 or whoever the next in line would have been, then that person could be a very, 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 very good player, but is restricted to the amount of events they can play.
I would suspect that at some point in time they're going to lift the restraint from because these are 256 fields ultimately, right? So I'm assuming that ultimately they're going to lift that restriction from, let's say, 129 to 176, or just pick a number in there where these players can maybe play 3 or 4 times, something like that. Maybe they can't play all of them, but.
There is a risk with everybody only being allowed to play 2 that
it probably should be that way.
They run out of players for their final open event.
Yeah, right. So that's why I wondered if you can, if then a lot of it would be based on qualifiers, and even if you've played in 2 where you just signed up for 2, you could play in the other ones if you qualify them through some other event.
I would imagine the 2 chances you have is in the main event.
Where did this come from, by the way? Where did this 2 event restriction come from? I've never seen or heard of that.
There was a document that apparently was leaked. We're not sure if it was leaked or if it was supposed to come out. And in there was a clause saying that players outside the 128 would only be allowed to play in 2 events.
I can't see I can't see the benefit in doing that. I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why I was asking about it. It was curious.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but my idea, the benefit of that is and I'm not trying to throw people under the bus here, but let's remember Joe McGee from a couple years ago that played, I think, Judd Trump opening round. Yeah. He had no business being there. He was doing it because he enjoyed the game and he wanted to get in the ring and play some great players. There's nothing wrong with that. But I have to assume that this is going to stop players from going around and doing that at every single event. So that the field is going to have more players that should be there as opposed to can afford a $750 entry fee and want to get there. I have to assume that that's what this is about. It's trying to keep the players there that should be there and not missing out on spots because, they didn't get into the portal at exactly the right second.
It won't work like
therefore
that.
They can't. Huh?
It won't work like that though, because you'll have your 128, so you've got 128 players that need to fill. So you're saying what they're saying is 129 to 256 on the ranking can only play twice each. So that means you're going to have guys that are not even on the ranking that are going to get spots because number 129 has already played 2, and number 150 has already played 2, and so many players have already played.
Okay, so let's make the magical assumption that 128 of the top 128 play every single event, no matter what. So we're working with 128 for 6 events, or let's say 5 events, because the World Pool Championships is invite only, and it's only 128. Theoretically, you could have 40 players who have unlimited resources and they want to go to the Hanoi Open, the European Open, the UK Open, the US Open, and then whatever this magical 5th new one is going to be. Who's stopping 40 players from taking away 40 players that played, 500 Fargo? Can't win a match. Probably can't win more than 2 games in any given match.
I think that all this, because this hasn't really even been distributed. And so I think this is all something that will take care of itself. We're just speculating. Listen, they're not going to come up with. They're not going to come up with. I just have to assume they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. That doesn't.
What I would like to know is how are they going to organize the qualification for the 128 players?
I'm sure they're working on that too.
That seems to be that seems like a lot of work. That's going to be a lot of tournaments that are going to have to go on around Europe, Asia, America, in order to make the 128 players getting qualified. Is there going to be an entry fee to these qualifying events that then goes into? We
talked before about the WPA ban relative to its members, and one of the things that I know you guys talked about, Jim, and I've talked about with people, is that to me a lot of that's about the 129 to 256 player more than it is the 128, because if Germany, the German Federation is sticking to its guns on the WPA ban, these players who play in club events around there, are they going to sign up for the European Open, because they'll end up getting banned from their national events? So to me, it seems like it's going to make it harder to fill that second 128 in a lot of these countries if they've got heavy hitter. I mean, if you went into Poland with an event or Germany with an event, you'd have a lot of those players that would fill those 129 to 256 spots that are going to think twice about doing it. Does that make sense or no?
Yeah, but also it's also the extra burden of actually having to play another tournament before going to the main tournament. A lot of players, the myself included, go and play the UK Open. It was great, just register, go and play.
Right.
If they'd said to me, well, you have to go a month before, you have to go to Austria and play a 4-day tournament there in order to qualify for that, I'd be like, I'm not doing that. I'm not.
No, but I mean, if you look at one like the European Open, they're going to want to increase the prize fund as much as possible. They'll probably have one spot for every, just say, 12 entries or 20 entries into a qualifier, and they'll have qualifiers in different countries around Europe, I'd imagine. As you could just prize through the roof, isn't it?
It's a whole nother level of things to oversee and
this is stuff that's all going to come out in the wash.
Right.
We just have to have patience and wait.
Then let's jump to Jason's question about what do you think is going to happen now for the World 10 ball. And I'm curious. I'm really curious these days. I don't know why, but I really am. I'm not sure what he means by that.
When is the World 10 ball for this year?
It's the end
of March, before the ban. I mean, end of February, before the ban even goes into effect.
So it's happening just before then anyone can play in it.
But why is Jason Shaw posting that? He would know better than anybody.
Maybe he's just stirring the pot.
Well, he is. That's why I was like, okay, get out of the cold pool and tell us what the hell you meant by that.
I would imagine that you could.
The ban goes into effect on March 1st, and I believe that event starts. Matt, I'm pretty sure that event does not finish on the 1st. I'm pretty sure it's down to the semifinals.
The ban doesn't go into effect until you play in a non-sanctioned event. So they can play on March 2nd.
So you're
still in the World 10 ball.
So you're telling me if you make the semifinals and that goes to March 2nd, that's not playing in a non-sanctioned event?
Oh, so the event
is
it's
a sanctioned. The World 10 ball is a sanctioned event. You haven't broke any rules yet until you go play in a non-sanctioned.
You only break the rules once you played a Matchroom event.
Yeah, right. Right. So you can. If the event ran through March 7th, it wouldn't make any difference.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So,
until you've actually played a World Nineball Tour Matchroom event,
right?
After,
so I would think Jason.
March 1st, then there's not. You can play anything you want until then.
I wouldn't see, Jason, why anybody who signed a Matchroom contract couldn't play in the World 10 ball, or wouldn't. If they're in the U.S., why wouldn't you go ahead and play? You got the Las Vegas Open right ahead of it, and the World 10 ball. I mean, of course, why wouldn't you play?
I think I know why Jay's asking. I mean, why the WPA are, I would say, likely to change their mind and ban anybody who has signed a Matchroom contract. Why wouldn't they? What's the benefit in them having a World 10 ball champion?
I tell you what, because if your sponsor's Predator and they put all this money into it, and you're going to tell them after the first of the year that all of a sudden we're going to take all these players out of your World 10 ball championship in February when we set a March deadline, I don't think that would float too well.
Well, I don't think. Let's just say that the March the 1st, the date, the March the 1st. I think the World 10 ball was a pretty big deciding factor on it not being
Right.
Earlier,
so I don't think there's any problem with any player playing in the World 10 ball from the WPA side or the Predator side or the Matchroom side.
I wouldn't be surprised if they. I don't know why they would want a Matchroom contracted player winning the 10 ball, sailing off into the sunset with their world title and not coming back to defend it. I just don't think. I don't think they go for that.
Well, I think there's a reason they went to March 1st.
Did they? I didn't expect that everyone would be signing contracts ready for the 1st of January. I didn't know that was going to happen. I don't know.
That's when players have to sign contracts with a lot of players in a lot of those countries have to sign contracts with their federations, right?
I don't know. No, that's what I mean. I didn't know it would be happening for the 1st of Jan. Or...
I'd be, these contracts have been announced for over a week or two. Whether or not I would think the WPA would have come out and said something by now. If it's, that would be really putting a gun to your own head. I don't see why they would do that.
Yeah,
to answer Bob's question, Konrad Justishin is announced, and he's a Predator player at least. So, I mean, I guess I go through and find a couple more. But yeah, there's at least
David Al-Qaedi.
David and Konrad. They're both. Oh, and Victor as well. So that's at least 3.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting.
They did remove the Predator logo from their photos.
Yeah, but listen, they've been doing that for a while now, and
So actually, I can speak to that because as on board, we are no longer able to use any Predator logos on our apparel. So Predator has actually offered a cease and desist to a few companies that have used their logo without their permission. So that is probably why it's being removed, because I'm guessing that they probably gave Matchroom a cease and desist letter for using their logos.
Listen, if you're Matchroom, why are you going to help promote another promoter? It's not promoting a Q company. Well, you're helping to promote a competitive promoter. Yeah. Predator's putting on competitive events, right? So but also, I would not do that. I mean, if I was in boxing, a WBA world champion, they're not going to put his logo on a WBC event. They're just not going to give that kind of ink or visibility to.
Well, there are a lot of streaming companies
they're in competition with.
But there's a lot of streaming companies that are on jerseys. For example, Shane Wolford or David Al-Qaedi had the Shark stream on his jerseys for the Mosconi Cup, and they had no problem showing that. I mean, we're talking about peanuts compared to it.
Well, there's competition, and there's competition.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. I mean, the Sharks event, it's a World Nineball Tour event.
Sure.
So there's obvious.
I'm just. I don't. What you're saying also makes sense, but what I'm thinking is that Predator actually gave them this is just me speculating based off of my knowledge of what's happened to stuff that I've done, is Predator's probably given them a cease and desist letter because they don't want them using their logos. That's just, but but I guess so
you're saying that they don't want, I mean, in promotional things like posters, I can see Matchroom taking out. Do you think that Predator does not want David Al-Qaedi to wear a Predator logo on his jersey in a Matchroom event?
Well, why? Well, I'm just like, why wouldn't Predator want their logo on an onboard jersey that we do too? I mean, there's something. I mean, there's got to be a reason behind it that they have that we don't have, right?
In any onboard jersey, are they? So, are you doing onboard jerseys for Predator players?
Unless we have written approval, we cannot use their logo anymore.
Yeah, that I can see that.
Yeah, okay, but you know yourself, you also have a lot of amateur players out there who just use Predator equipment and they want to have a Predator badge on, so they ask for the logo. That's that. But if David Al-Qaeda says on,
but why wouldn't Predator want that? It's free advertising.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
There's a reason that we don't know about.
If David Al-Qaeda says on board, make me a new set of shots for 2024, Predator are not going to say, yeah, but you can't use the logo. I mean, why?
Yeah, no, right. That's what I was saying. Yeah, that would, that would be really counterproductive. I mean, they want their players to be on all those Matchroom TV events in the finals wearing their logo. I mean, why wouldn't you? So,
they might not like what Matchroom is doing or the effect it might have on their events. They might not like that with this whole WPA thing. But at the end of the day, I'd want my company being shown on the best promoted.
That's why you sign a. That's why you sign a player.
Exactly.
You don't sign a player just for grins.
I mean, what they're going to do? They're going to drop Josh Fillers, and they're going to just drop all their players because they can't.
Josh, when is that announcement going to drop?
Last.
Well, why don't we
don't expect that one to come just in the middle of all the rest.
March 1st.
Right.
March 1st.
So last time, let's jump into the actual players that have been announced at this point. But first, we got to do some commerce. I got to give a shout out to Mike Lippman, because Michael Lippman was in the podcast in the chat earlier. And I finally have my setup done for my pool room. So
looks very nice.
Yes, it does. It is absolutely incredible. This is the light that he built for me for my my pool room. How nice does this look? A nice little Christmas tree in the background. So we got to give a shout out to Lippman Lights, the best out there, best light on the market. Makes my pool room look pretty nice, don't you think, Jim?
And you're wondering why Predator doesn't want you to use their logo on your shirts.
I think you should get sponsored by a curtain company because you need some new curtains, my friend. They're ugly.
What's wrong with my curtains? It's my beautiful Predator pool table with the beautiful Lippman light. It's pretty, isn't it? Shout out to Lippman Lights.
Any hacker our country's got.
What's wrong with that, Chris? What do you got? What you got against my curtains?
Wow.
Alicia made those by hand, so go ahead, Jim. Make fun of them.
Out of one of Nate's old
Well, you're talking about players signing. I thought it was really interesting.
Jim will no longer be on the podcast going forward until he apologizes to my wife for hating on the curtains that she hand sewed.
I found it really interesting that Victor and Conrad were in there so soon. That's a real, because the Polish players were the ones that I probably were most worried about making that move, because their association is pretty strong.
Victor's been at odds with his federation for a long time, though.
I think they've all been at odds with the federation at one point or another, because
Victor was different. Victor was different.
I was glad to see the two of them, basically thumb their nose and say, we're playing real pool.
Yep. I think out of all the announcements that have been made, those are the two that have.
Well,
that should turn people's heads the most.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's go through one by one.
The Co-Brothers could, in my opinion, I don't know what kind of restrictions they would have in Asia and stuff like that.
He told me some while ago that they get nothing, so they had no issue. They had no issue signing.
WPA is big in Asia, so I mean, there's
and the Asian Federation is.
They're going to have to do a lot of traveling now. So I mean, but great that they've both committed.
Yep.
But and Victor, like Nate said, not a big surprise for me. He's been at odds with his own federation, the WPA, for a while now. Yap, also not a surprise with the Singapore.
Well, hold on, Jim. Let's just go through them one by one, and let's talk about each one, because then we can actually. Now,
how many are there? How long are we going to be here?
Well, we don't have to spend a ton of time with it. The first one that's been announced since the last time. So I guess to fill in everybody where we were at last week, David, Jason, Darren, and who am I missing from last week? That was FSR. No, not FSR. FSR wasn't announced. Billy Thorpe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So those were the four that were announced when we did the last. And my critique of it last week was, if players are this happy to join in and be a part of this, why are you announcing Jason Shaw? Yes, absolutely, that makes sense. Billy Thorpe barely played. Darren is towards the end of his career, and David Al-Qaidi is 45 years old.
Well, you announce them as they come in. I mean, they're players who've got some cachet and some visibility, value, and
120.
I'm just being fair. I'm being fair to Matchroom, right? My critique was, of all the players who want to join your tour, why wasn't a bigger name outside of Jason announced right away?
Maybe they hadn't sent it in yet.
Is there a deadline? Quickly,
Sure.
Is there a deadline on when the contract has to be signed by?
Yeah, it's got another 2 weeks or something left to run on that.
So there's a lot of players who were busy over the holidays.
They're just waiting.
Sure.
Players having contracts looked at by their lawyers, by their sponsors.
You know that Matchroom is a marketing company. It doesn't make sense to me that you're not going to try to make the biggest splash you could possibly make immediately and hold off a couple of days if you need to do so. I mean, it's not like they haven't been announcing every single day 700 players that are coming up. They could have waited a few days to start these announcements. They kind of came out of the blue to begin with. I don't
see what the negative was.
No, just get them out there.
Sure.
They're doing exactly what Matchroom do best, and that's getting people talking and getting a buzz.
Yeah.
These guys are the top. These guys are considered to be the top. Are going to be considered the first 128 professional pool players.
Yeah,
and I mean, they're all in essence big names because they are the first ones. You know.
I mean, they posted Quack. I mean, he's not exactly a household name.
Okay, so let's go through it. So since then, Mario He, age 30 years old, from Austria. This is I guess Mike, you started out. Surprised? Not a surprise? What do you think?
Well, I was a little bit surprised, not surprised, but happy that two Austrian guys came out right away, because that was another federation that I think has a little bit of muscle in Europe as far as their players go. I'm assuming Albin's gonna sign, but I was happy to see Mario and Max go ahead and just say this is where we're playing.
All right, Jim.
Yeah, no surprise for me. Mario, Max, and Albin will all be in there.
Chris.
Yeah, all good. Nothing surprising.
Well, easy game then. Let's move on to the next player that was announced after Mario He, and that would be Francisco Sanchez Ruiz. So, Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, that was good. That was going to be obvious.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Obvious. And no, whether we need to go in, it was switching from Predator to Q-Tech. No.
Yeah, right.
No coincidence there either, I think.
Yeah, kind of makes sense, right? And you got the Q-Tech logo right on the chest.
What's the barcode?
What?
What happens if you scan the barcode?
That's a good question. It just comes up with signed.
It comes up with a message, not for you.
Yeah.
All right, so then the next player announced after that, my cat is going psycho. The next player after that was Ko Ping Yi. Oh, that's Mario.
Wow, he's gained a little weight.
He's gained a little bit of weight.
Mike.
I can't actually see any of these pictures. They're like incredibly small, and they just have.
Well, we can just go through their names. We know what they look like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Ko brothers. That was not a surprise. Good to see them jump out there and do that. They're solid guys.
Well, it's not about this. It's not about the telling them apart. It's that they're wearing. I can only see very, 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 very small things. So I'm trying to identify them from the shirt. They have the same shirt on. So that is the reason why I can't tell the difference between them.
You couldn't tell that one shirt was a lot bigger than the other shirt.
No, because the size of these images are like a centimeter by like a millimeter. It's like very, very, very small. I can't even tell the difference between Jonas and Mario, and they're right next to each other.
Oh God!
So no, I can't. All right. Let's see.
Any surprises? I guess
Yeah.
Well, we have so we can do that. So the Ko brothers, Ko Ping Yi, Ko Ping Chung. Is Ko Ping Han in the top 28?
128?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
He would be, I think. No.
Would he? 128?
I think he didn't go.
Probably borderline.
Didn't go to all of them. He must be. Jesus.
What was the 128 based on, Jim?
2-year ranking list.
The 2-year list.
The ranking has reached its adulthood, shall we say?
Yeah. Okay, so it's the 2-year. It's a 2-year thing.
They'll go now to a one. I think they'll go eventually just a 1-year rolling ball.
Yeah.
There'll be a 1 year. There'll be a provisional ranking and the set ranking. So throughout the year, the provisional ranking will continue to change. whereas the ranking that was set at the start of the year will dictate seedings in tournaments.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So then Jonas Sota, I believe he's 20 years old now, 22.
22.
The young Spaniard, up and coming player. Again, I don't know. Any surprises here?
No.
I don't know exactly what the Spanish Federation is like, so
I don't think they offered a whole lot of help, to be honest with you. I never heard that they did. So.
Sure. All right.
They're all really close to Spanish players, so he'll go with his buddies.
Yeah, of course.
Good player. I think he's got a good future. I think he's still got a couple of steps that he can reach. So yeah.
So then maybe the next player, one of the next players announced is probably going to be like Jose Delgado.
If Delgado's in there, then I'm sure he would take it. Probably, yeah.
He's got to be. He's had a couple decent finishes.
Yeah, I think he got quarters or semis in one. So
yeah. I know he made the final 64 at the U.S. Open, but I think he may have lost his first match. I think maybe it was Tyler. Maybe he lost to Tyler right away or something. So then from there, I guess the next player announced is Shane Van Boning, the South Dakota kid. Any surprises here? No.
Yeah, I think we can just skip past that one.
Yeah, with all that incredible amount of federation help that the U.S. has for their players.
Koping Hans 1, 2, 3. He's actually tied with somebody on 1, 2, 3, which is massive.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I was just looking it up on my computer's like really fritzy.
He'll sign as well. He'll go with his brothers. He'll sign as well.
Sure. Yeah, maybe he's just
3 to a room.
Maybe doesn't quite take priority.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll be towards the end. So then I guess probably widely considered the biggest surprise so far to most players. I mean, this doesn't surprise me. I've talked to Conrad as well, but Victor Zielinski.
I don't think anybody would say it's a surprise though, Nate. I honestly don't. He's a young guy, maybe the most talented player in the world, or certainly in the top handful of, and he's got his whole career.
The Polish Federation also does a lot for the Polish players. They actually do pay entry fees. I mean, so my understanding, and I talked to them, so I don't know if I'm exactly supposed to be saying this, but I don't really care because they're all going to be leaving the Federation anyways. From what I understand is they pay their entry fees and they pay their travel, but then they have to give, I think it's 20% of any money that they make back to the Federation.
They got to kick it back.
Yeah.
And I thought they had to kick back the expenses first and then 20% of winnings. But I mean, it was something, either way, it was,
so
loan
like
sharking,
50 or 60%.
essentially.
It could be 50 or 60% of a decent, if you won 10 grand, you could be paying back 5 or 6 grand of that.
That's right.
Well, if you win a Euro Tour, you might end up losing money by winning it.
Yeah. So it's, but they all travel together, and I always understood that they kind of, that they don't, it's not savers, but they pool all the money.
Okay.
That they get out of an event. So I mean, the Polish players were hostages, and good for them for standing up and saying, no, we're not doing this so far. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. The next player after that, Aloysius Yap.
Yeah.
No surprise.
No surprise there. They kind of pushed them in their direction, anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If there was 50 Singapore players in that top 128, you'd have 50 Singapore players joining.
Yeah.
All right, and then Guac, the Vietnamese superstar.
No surprise, Matchroom did him, didn't they? Matchroom turned him into the guy he is,
Well, but the weird thing was that he couldn't even play in the Hanoi Open. So at some point, the gun to his head had some weight, right?
Yeah. Or at least he's basically a little bit more time to think about it.
Yeah, he's found his way out of it, which is good. I'm glad to see that happen. And I'm glad Matchroom loves seeing that happen, because I know they can't wait to get back to Vietnam with an event. And so to have the top player in there this year will be huge.
Yeah.
All right. So then the next on the list would be Naoki Oi.
Yeah. No
Chris,
surprise
what do you
there.
think?
Yeah, I think he was always going to do it. He's one of he might do the most miles throughout a year, actually, out of everybody on the tour.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah. He was definitely going to do it.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Well, then we'll move on to Sky Woodward, which is next. Again, anybody surprised?
Nope.
This is like I like this picture with him and Fedor. This is like a perfect caption contest.
It's a good. That was a good one.
Wouldn't that make a great caption contest?
But
Jim, what's your best caption for it?
But here we go. If Federer hasn't been announced yet, if he hasn't signed, he's not on this picture.
True.
So Federer signed. We can expect that announcement.
Well, why wouldn't he?
Yeah, of course. He's going to anyway because
I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't.
For Federer, I don't think there's any reason why he wouldn't. He loses.
What's one of them?
Okay, Federer plays in these other events like Qatar and China, whatever. Is anyone even going to come close to stopping him from winning 50 grand in one and 40 grand in the other?
Yeah, but
that would give a really top player pause.
But then it becomes
there's still 300 Chinese. There's still 300 Chinese players that play pretty good.
Yeah, well, every Matchroom event's got 128 killers. So
yeah,
the first thing that happens as soon as he says I'm going with WPA is he becomes Russian again, and that causes other issues for him.
Yeah, right.
He's made a life choice, not just a pool choice.
He's committed.
No, he could be non-line country. I mean, that's the way WPA has them now.
Yeah.
I'm guarantee that Fedor is not going to.
No, I'm just kidding, but you know, it's like if you
7 Euro tours.
If you start looking for some easy money, it's got to be tempting for a couple players to think.
Yeah, a couple of players. There will be a couple of players that don't.
Yeah, who will think they can.
Let me ask you this, Jim: who would you be most, of say like the Polish players? Who would you think might stay in the Polish Federation?
Wojtek.
Yeah.
I think he's very loyal to the Polish Federation, I think. Yeah.
That would crush you, Nate, wouldn't it?
I would probably be destroyed.
Also wouldn't surprise me.
I would stop the podcast.
Who's that?
To be honest, I would just stop the podcast and cry a lot.
Who's that?
It wouldn't surprise me if he chose Matchroom, but I think he's one of the guys that he hasn't.
What about a young guy like Matchroom?
He hasn't been given the same flowers, shall we say, by Matchroom as like a Fortunsky has or something like that. So I expect Fortunsky to sign.
Yeah, of course. He's
been given the pat on the back and a little bit of love by Matchroom over the years.
And he's been pretty anti-Polish Federation.
Yeah.
But what about a young guy like Maciel?
Daniel?
Yeah.
I suspect that Wojtek and Daniel will probably do the same thing.
Yeah.
I would
whatever one of them does, I would guess it.
For somebody like Maciel, I would almost encourage him to do another year or two in the WPA. It's tough. It's going to be tough to in the beginning. It's going to be tough in the Matchroom arena for a lot of players.
Yeah, but I mean, we talked about. It's not like Daniel hasn't had success on the Matchroom stage already. He's made a couple quarterfinals. I think he's made a semifinal.
Yeah, but if you look at, I'm looking here purely at Poland. You want to be playing the World Cup of Pool. You want to be playing in the Masters. You want to be, and if the World Cup of Pool is something you might be getting, then that's nice. But they're not. Maciel's not going to get in the World Cup of Pool. The World Cup.
It's not far out.
Sorry,
I bet that he's not far out from it. If it's a guaranteed qualifier, I bet he's in the top 4.
Well, but it's going to be the number 1 and his mate.
Well, if Wojtek's number 1, he's going to pick probably Daniel.
But Wojtek's not going to be number 1. We've just announced Victor Zielinski.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, it's not like Wojtek's far behind him.
It's interesting. Someone mentions they're in Vietnam now. Huang is banned from all local regional tournaments and can't represent Vietnam in the Asian Games, staying for a yep. That's the only thing that these players are really kind of giving up. A couple of them, especially when you get into Asia, lose that ability to play for their country in international competitions like that. That's probably the one thing that has given a couple of them a little bit of pause is terms of what you do. The Co's always played in the Asian Games. The Asian Games are a big deal for the Filipino players. And we haven't seen any Filipino players sign. So I'm really curious that, the Filipinos are where I'm kind of wondering how many are coming over, who's all going to do it, that type of thing. Because if you look at, we looked at Aranis and we looked at Feliciano, we looked at Raga, all these guys were like,
Johan Chua.
But if you look at all of them, it's play an event, skip two, play an event, skip two, play an event, skip two. I'm really curious whether any of these guys are going to really make a commitment to be in all these events.
And we need some of them to be in there, because if you have a world pool tour and there's no Filipinos in it, there's always
there'll be Filipinos in there. I just want to see them on a regular basis. I want to see Braga play in every event.
Yes, let's say the top Filipinos aren't there. There's always going to be that, but the top Filipinos aren't there.
Yeah,
it's so you need some of them to be in there. But
okay, I guess where did we leave off? Was it Sky last? So then the last player is Conrad. We've already talked about him a little bit. We've also talked a little bit about the other Polish players that we think probably will and will not sign.
I got a question for you guys. Who do you think's the biggest name that won't sign?
Who's the biggest name that won't sign? Wow.
Are we
trying to think of who's?
Wait, let me ask this: Are you asking us what's the biggest name that might not sign, or that will definitely not sign? In our mind,
I know who definitely won't sign. Wu Cha-Ching.
Go ahead.
Wu Cha-Ching. Yeah. We won't play because he's kind of as far as I understand,
he doesn't play anyways.
Well, he played. How many did he play last year? 3, 4?
2 or 3.
1.
And he's the biggest name who won't play, I would say. He's the biggest name.
No, he only played 2. I think he played the Whirlpool Masters and he played, was it the Spanish Open?
You asked who the biggest name was. You didn't ask me to.
Well,
good answer, Chris.
Okay, who's the highest ranked player who won't?
What do you guys think about Kachi?
I think he signs.
You think he signs?
0 chance he won't sign. 0 chance he won't.
Actually,
Matchroom, he didn't get a lot of love last year from Matchroom, and he won the World 10 ball and was right up there in the World 8 ball. Those are good games for him.
I think Matt Poland has nailed it. Ralph Suke.
Well, I don't think he's the biggest name that won't sign. I think that he won't sign because he's at that age where the federation means more to him than he thinks he's going to get out of in finishes, right? He's not going to make Mosconi Cup anymore. Likely, he's not going to be World Cup of Pool. Likely, that type of thing. So if it's just open events, is there a lot of value to an aging player like Ralph to do that? What do you think about Niels?
I was just about to say, do you think Niels signs?
I think he has to because he wants to have a future with commentating with Matchroom, and if he doesn't sign, is Matchroom going to be giving him commentary opportunities in the future?
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
He's probably somebody who might want to be the Mosconi Cup captain someday.
Yeah, but
he could play for a couple of years and then formally retire. Then he's not a WPA guy anymore.
But I know that with the 20 or 25.
Will Matchroom remember that?
The 20 or 25 grand that the number 1 and 2 in the Netherlands from the federation, the lottery, that's a lot. And Niels always goes back to make sure. Right. He always goes back and supports their events. He lives in Denmark or something, but he always goes back and plays in the events. And
he skipped. What did he? Didn't he skip UK or European last year to play into European Championships? Because if he medals, he gets that money, and that was a big thing to him.
Yeah, Nick Vandenberg. I think he played the Euros this year as well, probably for the same reason.
Yeah. Because I don't know. Kazakis' name mentioned in here quite a lot. I think Kazakis signs.
There's no reason Melling wouldn't sign. There is no federation in the UK, so there's no downside to Chris signing.
Right.
For any.
Yeah, Bijsterbosch, that might be, honestly, he's talking about Bijsterbosch. He's had a lot of good finishes with Matchroom events. That might be somebody who doesn't sign.
Melling has a problem.
Yeah, well, Melling's got the same problem that someone like Chua is going to have when you got these guys tied into the hay ball, which is linked up with WPA now. Now you're running into problems.
I didn't think about the hay ball part.
That's a real problem for Chris because I know he was really getting back into it, and he had 6 trips planned to China or something for this year, and
Got you. Yeah, I didn't think about it.
There's a lot of Asian players playing into hay ball now, and a number of the Filipinos, so that's going to affect their decision.
But I don't know what Chris will do, but there's a lot of money to be made in the Hayball side of things, but I know he still thinks that he can, and I'm with him. But he still thinks that he's maybe got unfinished business with Nineball. He still thinks he can be world champion, and I think he still thinks he's got unfinished business on this side of things, on this side of the fence.
Well, he was an ill-timed shower away from potentially playing in the semifinals of the U.S. Open, 2 years ago? So,
I don't know.
What?
Nothing.
No, Matchroom changed his schedule. I mean, I've said this on the podcast before. His schedule was, I want to say he was scheduled to play at like 4:30 or something like that. So he goes back to his room, puts his phone on Do Not Disturb, kind of hangs around, chills, and then he's ready to take a shower to get ready to his match. And he just happened to look down at his phone, and he's being called from Matchroom saying, you're up in 10 minutes. Where are you at?
Bob,
because they changed the time on him, so he had to sprint downstairs and get ready for his match, and he had I think he had forfeited his first game.
Yeah, but Bob,
because he wasn't there in time.
Bob's saying here in the comments, but he's a Q-Tech player, so Chris will probably sign. He's also a Joy player. He's contracted to Joy.
Yeah.
It's not cut and dry for him. I wouldn't want.
Yeah, no, not at all. Like I said, any of these guys who are tied in.
Yeah.
Any of these guys who are tied into the Hayball, it's going to be it's going to be how much are they willing to gamble on their Hayball future.
Yeah, and it's a money thing at that point. It's a money thing.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot of guys that they might not take it now, but they'll look to take it in the future. It's not saying if you don't take it now, the door is closed for you to come in the future.
Well, the question,
there's some guys in the 128 that have legitimate reasons for passing this year and saying, listen, I just can't make it happen this year. I need to sort out, like Chris, I need to sort out my contractual obligations before I can make any decision on this.
Yeah.
I mean,
the big question that I have is let's say Joshua Filler doesn't sign, because he's kind of like the biggest name that there's a question mark.
I don't think there is anymore.
I mean,
I think he was putting like some funny Instagram post or something a couple of weeks back.
Pia threw one out there that was like, okay, well, that answers that question.
Yeah.
Well, probably. I mean, that was the post where he was like, all the people who think they're smart, these are the things that, right? That post. Yeah. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just means that they're, saying how stupid people are for thinking that they know them. But you could read into it more and say, well, of course,
I read into it.
Yeah. So
yeah, sure. But let's just use Joshua Filler as an example, because there is at least a little bit of doubt whether or not he was, whether it's 5%, 10%, 50%, who knows. But my big question to Matchroom would be, all right, let's say Joshua Filler does take the WPA route for 2 years. When he comes back, is he automatically going to get the spot back that he had, or is he immediately relegated to the under 128 and then has to waste a year trying to get back onto the 128 list?
Yes.
And only getting 2 events potentially to do it. They only has
by
2
events. By that time there'll be a Q school, and you can do direct qualifying.
Sure.
Onto the tour.
Yeah, you're not going to take away someone's spot in the 128 that earned it because Josh Filler's come back after 2 years.
He'll have to go through the rankings like everybody else.
Sure.
One thing.
But that means he basically misses out on the World Cup of Pool, the World Pool Masters, and potentially the World Nineball Championships for X amount of years, because until however long it takes him to get back onto it. I don't know what the qualifying is like.
2
I would
tournaments
like to think
to get back into the 128.
Yeah.
Probably. No, that's not true, because the 128 is good for the entire calendar year.
Right.
So if he gets in, if the first 2 events he's in, that still doesn't do him any good until next year. He can't play another event.
He wins both of them.
He
wins both of them. He's got 60,000 points right out of the gate.
Correct, Mike. But he can't play anymore for the rest of the year, and the 128 is good for the entire calendar year. So if he's good by March, he wins the first 2 open events. He still can't play in an event until the following calendar year.
A major, right? Just a major. He can play in all the other sports.
Again, we're all speculating on how that's all going to flush out anyway.
Sure.
But I am
and maybe Matchroom would let him play, but you can't tell me that if he wins the first 2 events and he's into the top 16, but can't play another event for the rest of the year. I mean, that's
asterisk, subject to change.
Sure. but that's open for all these players that don't take it right away.
I want to respond to Carl Boyce says Hayball and Nineball different sports, but Hayball, especially with the word Hayball, is a WPA sport.
Yeah.
So it's a WPA discipline in the WCBS. So if you played in a Matchroom event, I got to believe that you're barred from playing in a WPA Hayball event. Right? Didn't you think so, Chris?
Yeah, but I don't think he might not be talking to us. He might be talking to somebody in the comments.
Oh, never mind.
I don't know.
I could see a situation where, like, if one of these players that, one of these definitely top, solidified concrete top 10 players decides to take a year off and think about it and play the WPA side of things just to see what it's like. Even if they go out and win the UK Open and then the European
They'll
Open,
figure it out.
You're done.
They'll figure it out. You're not gonna keep your top names out if as long as you didn't screw anybody else over in the process. So
well, when they were doing it with the darts for many, many years, the BDO survived, and there was a BDO tour and there was the PDC tour.
Right.
And the PDC decided to give direct qualification spots to the PDC for BDO players if they won certain events or did well in certain events. So players were almost, you could liken it to the European Championships for the Dutch players getting, if you medal, you get this amount. And for the PDC, it was as well. There were certain performance-based from the BDO events that guaranteed you an invitation and a spot to play on the tour in the PDC the next year. So Matchroom, they've done this before. They could probably come up with something like that and say, listen, the world champion, if there's a world champion, WPA world champion, you're guaranteed a spot if you want it the next year, that kind of stuff. The 10-ball world champion can join. They can do whatever they like. They can do whatever they like to make sure that somebody like Filler gets in the next year, regardless of what happens.
Yeah.
They can turn around and say, what did you win? You won the Derby City Classic, right? The winner of the Derby City Classic gets a spot in the team.
Yeah. Replying to Sebastian, sorry for this, but Shane Van Boning is not at the top of anything but 9-ball. 9-ball
World 8-ball champion, buddy.
Carl was
9-ball pool, meaning 9-ball.
Carl's talking
he's
about,
not at the top of Hayball. He is not at the top of Hayball.
Carl's saying, pick one and play one because no one's going to be top at both games. But
I have to assume that Carl means 9-ball pool versus Hayball.
He means American pool against
Hayball or pick Matchroom and stick to one or the other. But you get guys like Chua, guys like Chris Melling. They really think that they can still play at the top of both. So. I don't think you're going to get one of them saying, okay, I'm not going to play pool ever again. I'm just going to focus on it. Maybe they should, but I don't think it's quite that easy.
Well, I would say this. I think Chris Melling is, and I mean this as respectfully as I can possibly say it, even though it's not going to come out that way. Chris Melling might be the biggest waste of talent in Q Sports history because he's been elite at every single one of them, but doesn't stick with any of them long enough to be able to really do huge damage at them.
It's not that he doesn't stick with them. He's playing all of them at the same time. It's the opposite. Well,
sure. Well, yeah.
All of them. That's what the problem is. But he just
you can't tell me that if he just stuck with 9-ball pool that he wouldn't be a world champion by now, or if he just stuck with highball that he would be one of the top 5 to 10 players there, or if he stuck with, maybe snooker's a little bit different, but even still, I still think that he would be a regular touring professional there. Even English 8-ball, I think he'd be a multiple world time champion, several times over.
But he is, but
you just can't. Well, I mean, even more so than what he is what I mean. Like
English
if he would have picked with one
historically, but.
There's a pretty good argument that you can make that Chris Smelling is actually one of the greatest Qists outside of snooker that this game's seen, right?
He doesn't even practice Chinese 8-ball. He just gets on a plane, buggers off to China, goes deep.
He doesn't practice anything.
He doesn't practice anything. He's nutcase.
Yeah. He's continually playing because he's got his fingers in so many pies. He's continually playing anyway, and he's continually doing exhibitions. He's always on the table.
Yeah, he does.
Just a quick one for Graham Hickman. If you go back to the start of the podcast, once we finish, go back to those questions are answered at the start. But yeah, I mean, one thing I will agree with Chris is if only one of these disciplines existed, he'd have won more than what he has won. On each of those disciplines, he'd have won much more American pool. He'd have won much more at 8-ball pool, and he'd have won much more at Hayball if they individually were the only one that existed.
That's what I think. I mean, when you ask players about their contemporaries, there are players that rise above. when players talk, when their peers talk about them. These players are like Wu Ching. When you ask Shane Van Boening who he thinks the greatest player he's ever seen is, he brings up that name, right? When his contemporaries talk about Wu Ching, they talk about him differently. Chris Melling is in that category. His contemporaries talk about him differently, not like a just a standard really, really great player. They talk about him like he is a different type of cueist.
Yeah. There's very few players on the planet that could have been as successful as Chris playing all of the games. Spread out over all the games to be as successful as Chris had takes a special kind of talent. There's very few players that could have done that. But each one individually, if you look at them each individually, what he's achieved at each of them, he's underachieved at each of them because he's spread himself out over.
And that's my point. Yeah, that's my point.
Is that it, Jim? Or is that it, Jim? Or is he never given the? Is that it, or is he never given the real? He's never been a Shane Van Boening type of, Filipino type of practice. He just goes out there with the talent.
Sky Woodward's the same way too. Sky Woodward never practices.
Yeah, a little bit. But if you just list in each of the disciplines Chris's results, you would think he should have won more than that, surely.
Yeah, of course. I attribute to his dedication to the games more than his spreading himself.
He's won more than just the Derby City Classic 9-ball.
Yeah.
But has he?
No.
China Open.
Did he win the China Open?
Did he not win the China Open?
I don't think so.
No?
Yeah, maybe.
I think he's played the finals of it.
He's gone deep in loads and loads of tournaments. But if you just, if you look at his resume, for each of them, it's less than what you would think it should have been.
It is. But
he's won the China Open. Yeah,
I think he might be. He has won it. Yeah, but he might be the only person that has actually attempted to play all of them professionally as well. I don't think anybody else is crazy enough to even attempt it. But I broadly agree with what you're saying, Nate.
And I would say that if he even just went in like 5-year chunks where he played English 8-ball for 5 years, and then or snooker, and then he switched to English 8-ball, and then he switched to 9-ball, and then he switched to high ball. I think if he just did that for 20 years of his career, he would have more accomplishments in each one too.
Yeah, he probably would, but facts are facts, and that's not what he's done. I think he's still number 2 ranked professional English 8-ball player in the world at the minute. I think.
Mm-hmm. That actually seems to be the game that he really, really, really shines at. Still, that's where he started. That's where he made his
agreed.
Game.
Yeah,
agreed. That's where he still is when people go and watch him and think.
That's why what Chris said before about he might be one of the ones most likely to just say, no, I'm not signing a Matchroom contract. I'm playing hay ball.
Yeah, maybe. Obviously, I can't talk for
because he can play hay ball and still play the 8-ball in the UK and be fine.
Yeah.
There's more money for him in those two than there would be in anything 9-ball pool at this point in his career, I would think. Not saying he can't compete at the 9-ball level, obviously, but I think that when you're talking about two different disciplines that are, whatever you want to say, I would say that 9-ball and Chinese 8-ball are closer than Chinese 8-ball and English 8-ball, but.
No, I don't know. It's hard to compare them all. But do you not think Melling can win 9-ball?
Pro 9-ball event?
Yeah.
I think he can win a pro 9-ball event. I don't think he can win as many pro 9-ball events as he can win English 8-ball events. And he doesn't have to win as many high ball events because there's just so much more money.
If I had to bet, I'd take the under.
Yeah.
I don't know the scene at English 8-ball, so I'm completely shooting from the hip here, but I have to assume that there are less players at his talent level in English 8-ball than there are 9-ball at this point.
He's top. For me, in English 8-ball, he's top 3 or 4 in the world.
And he's not top. He's not top 20 in 9-ball right now.
But 9-ball's a global game. English 8-ball isn't, right?
Sure.
So
yeah. But that's kind of my point too, right?
Yeah. But
10 minutes to darts.
Yeah,
the darts is starting in 10 minutes.
10 minutes in darts. Let's move on from Chris Melling.
Starts in an hour. Starts in an hour.
I can't believe we're giving Chris Melling 10 minutes of our podcast time. He doesn't even watch the podcast. He doesn't even know who you are, Nate.
Hey Jim. You want to know You're stressing me out right now. So you want to know what I need to do to make myself less stressed?
You want to have
can I get off this call before you
some of
answer
that green mind juice? Yeah.
Magic Mind, baby. Because I drink this. Why do I drink this? I drink this because Jim Telfer stresses me out, and I need a nice stress relief to get through having to deal with Jimbo on the podcast.
Well,
it's already working.
With stress.
Have you got hairs on the bottom of your feet yet?
No, but I do have intense focus that I did not have before, Jim. It's good stuff.
Promote it and then play
My problem is I have to put up with Jim. It stresses me out. It makes me anxious, and then it just drives my focus into the dirt.
All right, focus on bringing this show to its conclusion.
I'm going to do that too. I need extra focus to get this podcast to a conclusion, so I need Magic Mind. It helps me deal with Jim's shit and be able to thrive through it, even though he's a nuisance, isn't he? So, do you like having extra focus? Do you like being able to deal with your anxiety of dealing with Jim and the rest of us clowns on the podcast? You can get your subscription right now at magicmind.com/Jan Q it up, JAN Q it up, and use code Q it up 20 for an extra 20% off, which gets you to 75% off. And this only lasts until the end of January. So hurry up before it goes away. And then you can have some awesome Magic Mind just like me. And you can be awesome and cool and stuff. Mike, did that make you want to get Magic Mind? He's muted himself. I think that means yes.
I think he needs a magic mic, not a magic mind.
Yeah, maybe.
We can't hear him.
I think that's a different thing in the US, Magic Mike.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes. No, I lost my focus. So I wasn't really listening to what you said.
You need some magic
mind. Well, I think is there anything else that we wanted to discuss about all the announcements? I mean, they're making a few announcements a day. If I updated their page, there might even be another player that they've announced so far today.
I think the Drew Cleary announcement was the best one yet.
Oh, by far, yeah. That one was.
When does Derby start?
Derby starts the 19th.
Oh, we'll do a couple of shows.
Or 20th, right around then. Yeah.
We'll do a show. We'll do a show on the Derby.
What's the code again? The code is
Jan Q it up.
Well, so if you go to magicmind.com/Jan Q it up, and the Q it up or the code is Q it up 20, and you'll get 75% off. Go and support the people who support the podcast. I need to, I don't know, pay for my cats to eat, so I need support. There it is.
What happened with Sufi getting all his money stolen?
Yeah, that was a stupid thing.
Did you see that, Jim?
Sufi got all his money stolen.
All his prize money, apparently.
Well, someone was kind of controlling his prize money, was supposed to give him X whatever. It's just, it was one of those bad deals where someone made him think that they were doing him a favor and have not given him his money.
Oh, he pulled a Johnny.
Yeah, well, this is more like, this goes back to the IPT days when one guy signed all those contracts with those players to, stake them into the event for X percentage, whatever, and ended up swiping tons of money from these players.
So that included his world's prize money.
It was there's basically it was the only prize money he had.
Yeah.
Well, he lost part of that to Robbie Capito at the next event, didn't he? At the Stella Artois. He went straight from the World Championships and then played a set against Robbie Capito. Lost a bit of it.
Yeah, well, that's the worst move you can make, right? Win a tournament and then let someone sucker you into a game. Yikes.
Yeah.
I heard a story of a one pocket player who won a big amount of money at a matchup, and the money didn't make it home because they stopped at a casino.
Yeah, I've heard of. There's a few of them.
Oh, there's a lot of those. There's a lot of those.
It's like 30,000 didn't make it home. That's why you don't drive to your matchups.
Yeah.
So there it is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's close it up for the day. I do want to give a shout out to the rest of my sponsors as well. Insight Performance Coaching, Billiards Digest, Salado, Digital Pool, Onboard Sportswear, and Horo Tips. I'm being yelled at from the onboard guys right now because we have a meeting that we're going to be starting in 6 minutes, and they're like, "Get off the podcast, you donut." So I guess I got to do that.
They want you to send them the latest Predator logo?
Yeah, I think so. And then big shout out to Jacoby Custom Cues. They have sponsored the podcast and allow us to do a lot of what we do here. So thank you to them. Check out this amazing ad. I actually really like that ad. That's my favorite Jacoby ad. I just think it's such a beautifully made, and the cues are awesome, and they have a bunch of really cool pictures, and I don't know, I like it. All right, and then I will give a shout out to our Patreons that also support the podcast and allow us to continue doing what we're doing. So Matt Poland, he's been in the comments, as has Ed Ladawi, he's been in the comments, Cody Weddig, Mo Bashir, and Dave Wiersma. Thank you to everybody who supports us, and Double Dave Hughes was in here. Maybe he, I think he's still in here. Double Dave Hughes as well. All right. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.
Bye-bye.